One eye roll. That's all it took for this VP to lose her entire leadership team in only 6 weeks. And the worst part, she had no idea she'd done anything wrong. Picture this. You're in a strategy meeting. Your team is brainstorming solutions to a critical problem that has been keeping everyone up all night. Then, let's call her Jessica. One of your mid-level managers raises her hand and says, "What if we try partnering up with that startup that we met at the conference? They may have the technology that we need." And in that moment, you feel a surge of intellectual superiority because you know that startup, they don't have the infrastructure to handle your volume. The idea is naive, unrealistic, and frankly, immature. So you do what feels natural, what feels like leadership. You roll your eyes slightly, and then you let out a sigh and say with just a hint of sarcasm, "That's optimistic. Did anyone do actual research on their capabilities?" The room goes quiet. Jessica's face flushes. She doesn't speak up again for the rest of the meeting, and you've just deployed what Dr. John Gottman calls the deadliest of the 4 horsemen. If criticism wounds, contempt destroys. And most leaders, they have no idea that they're doing it. Welcome back to Mindset Monday in week 2 of our 4 Horsemen series. Last week, we talked about criticism, attacking someone's character instead of addressing behavior. Today, we are diving into something more destructive. Contempt is what John Gottman calls the sulfuric acid of love. It doesn't just damage relationships, it obliterates them. In his research, contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce. Here's what's terrifying for leaders. Contempt doesn't just destroy marriages, it systemically dismantles psychological safety. It kills innovation and drives your best people straight into the arms of your competitors. Contempt equals moral superiority plus disgust. The most dangerous part, it often feels completely justified in the moment. Here's what happens when contempt infects your leadership. People stop bringing you ideas, period. Your team meetings become echo chambers where only safe, predictable thoughts can survive. Innovation doesn't just slow down, it dies. Your most creative thinkers start looking for leaders who actually value their contribution. Here's the part that should terrify every leader. Contempt is contagious, and when you model it, your team starts using it with each other. Before you know it, you've created a culture where dismissiveness and superiority are the norm. One eye roll doesn't just hurt one person's feelings. It tells everyone who is watching, this is how imperfect ideas are treated here. You better proceed with caution. Contempt isn't just obvious things like eye rolling or sarcasm. It shows up in ways that feel like leadership. The dismissive, that won't work out explanation. The condescending, let me explain why this is not realistic. The public correction that makes someone feel foolish. The meeting where you respond to questions with barely concealed irritation. Here's what Gottman's research reveals. Contempt always communicates the same message. I'm superior to you. It's disgust mixed with moral superiority. Here's the leadership trap. Contempt often emerges when we feel threatened, overwhelmed, or disconnected from our own value. When we are insecure about our own expertise, we compensate by demonstrating others' inadequacy. The irony? The leaders who use contempt are usually ones who need fresh perspectives, but the way that they spew out contempt has just ensured they will never get them. This is where my framework for connected leadership becomes your contempt prevention system. See the contempt before it shows. Notice the feeling of superiority rising. Catch the internal eye roll and recognize the urge to demonstrate someone's inadequacy. Feel the impulse to mock or dismiss. This is your emergency stop moment. What you do next determines whether you build psychological safety or destroy it. Perceive what is really happening beneath the contempt. Ask yourself, what am I feeling threatened by? What's at risk for me? Is their idea challenging my expertise? Am I overwhelmed and less tolerant of imperfection? Am I disconnected from my own value and compensating through superiority? This is recognizing value, understanding that your worth isn't threatened by someone else's imperfect idea. Your expertise is enhanced, not diminished, by helping others think better. Respond. You want to move forward with curiosity over superiority. Find something valid in their perspective. Ask questions that help them develop their thinking. Acknowledge the courage in sharing and contributing. You can share concerns respectfully as a collaborator, not a judge. This is embodying grace, showing up with a genuine curiosity instead of defensive superiority. I'm going to give you an example of how this can play out in real leadership moments. Jessica suggests partnering with that startup. Here's the contempt response. That's optimistic. Did anyone actually do research on their capabilities? Because if we had, we'd know they can't handle our volume. Let's focus on realistic solutions. Everything about this feels like leadership. You're protecting the team from a bad decision, right? But watch what it actually communicates. Jessica's ideas don't deserve consideration. She's naive and doesn't do her homework. Her contributions are burdensome rather than valuable. Everyone else should think twice before sharing imperfect ideas. Interesting idea, Jessica. Help me understand how you see this partnership working with our current infrastructure challenges. What attracted you to this particular startup? Same startup, same infrastructure concerns, completely different energy. Notice what changed. You expressed genuine curiosity. You invited her to develop her thinking and you acknowledged her contribution. You also shared your concern as a collaborative challenge, not a dismissive judgment. This isn't about accepting bad ideas. It's about conquering control, focusing on developing people's thinking instead of just proving your superior judgment. Remember Wednesday's connection bank concept? Contempt doesn't just make a withdrawal. It completely bankrupts your account. Dr. John Gottman discovered successful relationships maintain a ratio of 5-to-1 positive to negative interactions. However, when contempt enters the picture, that ratio becomes meaningless. One moment of contempt can wipe out 20 positive interactions. That is destructive. Think about the last time someone treated your idea with contempt. How did it feel? Did you bring them more ideas after that? Did you trust them with your creative thinking? Now, imagine that you're a leader who just did that to Jessica. She's not just hurt, she's recalibrating her entire relationship with you. And everyone who witnessed, they are taking notes. But here's the good news. When you catch contempt before it launches and respond with genuine curiosity, you make massive connection bank deposits. You tell your team your thinking matters here. Imperfect ideas are welcome and we develop solutions together. That VP I mentioned in the opening, we'll call her Rachel. Rachel was brilliant. She has an MBA from Wharton, 15 years of strategic experience, a track record of turning around failing divisions. But she had one blind spot that was destroying her leadership. In meetings, when someone shared an idea that she thought was flawed, her face would show everything. The slight wince, the barely perceptible eye roll, and the patronizing tone when she explained why it wouldn't work. She thought she was maintaining standards. Her team experienced it as contempt. Then 6 months, 3 senior managers requested transfers, 2 potential directors to jobs with competitors. Her team meetings became graveyards where only pre-approved ideas were safe. Her breakthrough came when she watched herself on a video during a strategy session. She was horrified with what she saw. Not the content of her feedback, but the contempt in her delivery. Same standards, same strategic thinking, but when she replaced contempt with curiosity, everything changed. People started bringing her breakthrough ideas and innovation flourished. Her retention problems disappeared. Here's your Mindset Monday challenge for the week. First, track your contempt triggers. When do you feel that surge of superiority? Is it when people suggest ideas you've already considered? When they seem unprepared? When they challenge your expertise? Second, practice the phrase, help me understand your thinking. This single sentence transforms contempt into curiosity. Here's the deeper challenge. Start looking for the grain of truth in your ideas that trigger your contempt. Here's what I've learned. The ideas that make us most contemptuous often contain insights that we're too threatened to see. Remember, contempt feels like leadership, but it's actually the absence of leadership. True leaders develop thinking, they don't just dismiss it. Your expertise is proven not by shutting down ideas, but by helping others think better. I want to hear from you about your contempt experiences, but let's be brutally honest. What triggers your contempt as a leader? Is it when people suggest things you've already tried, when they seem to ignore the obvious constraints, or when they challenge your area of expertise? And here's the harder question. Think about a time when someone treated your idea with contempt. How did it contribute to your willingness to contribute around them? If I'm being honest, one of my contempt triggers was when people would suggest solutions without understanding the full context. I would think if they just knew what I knew, they wouldn't suggest that. It sounds naive. But I realized my job was to help them understand the context, not to punish them for not having it. Share in the comments. Let's help each other catch these patterns before they destroy innovation. If you have ever felt that surge of superiority towards someone's idea, here's what I need. First, hit that like button if you're ready to transform contempt into curiosity. Second, subscribe and ring that bell because this is week 2 of our 4 Horsemen series. Join us for Worthy Wednesday, where we will discuss defensiveness and stonewalling. Remember, the only control you have is how you receive, perceive, and respond. Choose curiosity over contempt. Choose development over dismissal. Your team's innovation depends on it.